Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra and I lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports. Joined today, as always, by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On today's episode, the NWSL is back. So we've got some games to preview for you all ahead of this weekend slate of games. And we also have the Euros finals to chat about a little bit and some other fun things like Copa America. Lots of global soccer still going on, and we're going to chat about it all. Before we get into everything, a quick reminder. Listen, we've been telling you this all month, and we just want to remind you one more time because voting ends July 31st. So thank you so much if you've already put in your votes for us, because we've been nominated for the best female hosted podcast category in the People's Choice Podcast Awards. To vote for us, just go to podcastawards.com/app/sign up. And then you can toggle down to the female hosted podcast category and select Attacking Third. We've also been nominated for the best podcast at worldsoccertalk.com. So head on over there and put in your votes. Last day to support us in these awards, July 31st. We appreciate everybody coming through and showing us some love. Lisa, how you doing today?
I am so good, Sandra. It is crazy that we're almost towards the end of July. Well, we are at the end of July, but we're almost done with it. Especially when we look at these two awards that we've been nominated for, which we are so thankful for, that the voting ends on July 31st. And at July 1st, when we found out about these, I was like, oh, we've got a month. We've got so much time. But it is here. The end of July is here, which means that August is upon us. And then in terms of like the soccer schedule, the summer of soccer that we've been like so jazzed for is nearing its precipice of finals for the Euros this coming weekend, Copa America as well. Like, it is a full perfect storm of everything in the women's soccer world because the NWSL is back as well. I'm jazzed. I'm all over the place. I'm ready to go. How are you doing?
I'm with you. Look, we said we want to hang out and get together early this week. Just wanted to just have all our excitement. We're like, we're too late. We can't wait to go later. Let's go in the morning. Let's grab our favorite morning beverage, hang out with each other, by extension, hang out with our listeners and chat a little bit of women's soccer. And, we're going to start with NWSL because it had a bye week. Mm-hmm. And we had to pump the brakes on that a little bit. And, quite frankly, everybody needs a break every now and then. So, with NWSL taking a pause, just sort of coming off of the CONCACAF qualifiers, we were like, cool, this will give us a chance to focus on maybe just a couple of specific women's soccer tournaments instead of every single one happening at the same time. So that sort of felt kind of nice. But because it's had the bye week, because we technically had a little bit of a bye week from it as well on the show, we're going to start with NWSL. Let's take a look ahead at maybe some of the news before we start jumping into some picks of these weekend's games. A big trade happened. Madison Pogarch and Tegan McGrady, trade between Portland Thorns and San Diego Wave FC. Player for player trade here, Lisa. Yeah. We don't see those too often anymore in this league, but sort of feels like a little bit of a mutually beneficial trade here. Do you have any, big takeaways or reactions when you first saw this drop?
Yeah, this definitely, the fact that it was a like for like trade and two players that are defenders, outside backs, versatile, can play a little bit higher up the field, honestly, both of them. But in terms of the teams, I think this is a beneficial trade for both sides because Tegan McGrady, being at San Diego, was getting minutes, but not a lot of consistent minutes. And maybe stepping into the Portland Thorns fold can help her get some more consistent time and playing with the Thorns, because we saw her with Washington Spirit, and then getting traded to San Diego during the expansion trade was huge for McGrady. She was going home. She's from Southern California and not even been there a year with this club, and now going north to Portland, maybe on a personal level, perhaps not the thing that Tegan McGrady wanted in that sense, seeing as she did get to go home for a few months to be in Southern California. But I think in terms of the players' individual growth on the pitch and in the sport, for McGrady to go to Portland is huge. She can learn a lot in that environment and with those types of players. And then Maddie Pogarch, Poe, coming to San Diego, that's huge. We did an interview with Poe her girlfriend, Kristen Westphal, who was also at San Diego Wave when Portland and San Diego were playing each other during Pride Month in June. And I wonder if this was like happening in that moment, if those talks are already happening, like, can we get Poe to Southern California? And it happened. So I'm super happy on that personal front to see those two back together. This is in terms of like purely non-soccer though.
Yeah, no, they were super cool to come on and chat with us during our Pride Month celebrations. And that was something that came up, the fact that they were, on different teams now and how they were navigating that. So I definitely thought of that because they were both guests on our show at one point. But yeah, I definitely was also just sort of like curious. I guess that's like my main word in terms of like my reaction to it. Maybe more on the San Diego Wave side of things. I was just curious about it, just because, Tegan McGrady was a player that franchise made a move for pretty early on. They made their announcement of their first ever player, saying that, hey, we signed Abby Dahlkemper. And then shortly after that, they started to add a couple other pieces as other clubs were having conversations ahead of the expansion draft. And Tegan McGrady was one of those very early pieces. And we saw this a lot from both Kelly expansion sides, quite frankly, that they wanted to engage in those. They were willing to engage in those conversations expansion draft, and in particular with players who had local ties to California. And Tegan McGrady was one of those players. So to sort of see this kind of mid-season move happen, I was just kind of like, okay, like that's interesting, because McGrady it wasn't a player like that wasn't necessarily not seeing extended minutes with the Wave. We've seen the opposite of that. We've seen a player sort of grow and over time with this team. So to sort of have this move, I was like, well, player for player, like swap perhaps. And I just hope that it's, again, mutually beneficial for both sides. But I think because it's two teams at the top of the table, and two players, similar positionally, it's going to be very interesting to see how that all kind of plays out for either side in this second half of the season. Racing Louisville also adding to some of their depth as well. Zanetta Wine, national team replacement player, signs. It's a 31-year-old defender out of West Ham United, linking up with Racing Louisville as well. So maybe, trying to take a look at how they can sort of bolster up their things ahead of the second half of this season. So curious to see how Wine is going to head and slot in for Racing. If they see extended minutes, quite frankly.
True.
We've been seeing some national team replacement players not necessarily getting a ton of time, but kind of as depth signings throughout the league.
Yeah, and we'll start to see those national team replacement players dropping off the rosters. Rather, like they're either getting signed, like Wynn was with Racing Louisville, or their contracts will be terminated. A couple players at Racing Louisville, they're leaving the clubs now after their stint during this national team replacement player window. So just a lot of new faces, perhaps, or familiar faces back from national team play for a lot of these clubs, which will be very exciting to see, because the last 2 weeks of NWSL play, so 3 weeks total, have been without a lot of their internationals. And we're starting to see those players trickle back in, which makes for hardy competition in the NWSL for next weekend, or this weekend rather.
Yes, it does. Let's talk about it, though. Let's make some picks. Let's chat a little bit about where some of these teams left us before the break. Let's go down this slate of games here. It is North Carolina Courage versus Washington Spirit, kicking things off on Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Then Racing Louisville FC versus Portland Thorns FC, Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Saturday with a doubleheader, Chicago Red Stars versus San Diego Wave, kicking off at 8 p.m. Eastern. Angel City versus OL Reign, Saturday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. And then we've got Gotham FC versus Houston Dash, Sunday at 5 p.m. and Kansas City Current versus Orlando Pride, Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Let's start with the West Coast, Lisa. Let's start with the game that's going to be kicking off the latest out of all of these matches this weekend. Games that we're going to be keeping an eye on. This is one of them. Angel City versus OL Reign. Who do you got in this one and why, Lisa?
Okay, I love this matchup. Angel City is hosting OL Reign. It's the second meeting between these two sides. The first time they played was in the second week of June, and OL Reign won. That was a 1-0 win for the Reign. That was the game, for those that remember, that Megan Rapinoe got a red card heading off the pitch. For those that need something to jog their memory about that match. And when we look at this, every team in the NWSL is coming off of a bye week. However, Angel City and North Carolina Courage are two teams that did not play the weekend before. It was due to a COVID game. That match was postponed between North Carolina and Angel City. So Angel City has almost had 3 weeks of rest or of time to prepare without games. Their last home game was July 9th against San Diego. They won that one 2-1. But Tyler Lucy received a red card in that match. And since Angel City has not played yet, Tyler Lucy will be out for this match for Angel City against OL Reign. OL Reign is coming off of a loss, 1-0 loss to Kansas City. But we saw the return of Tobin Heath in that last match. So between these two sides and Angel City hosting it, I think this is probably one of the most exciting games. We jumped right to it to start this weekend. And in this match, because of OL Reign coming off of that loss, and when you look at the standings between these two sides, OL Reign number 6, Angel City number 7, they're right in the middle of the pack. In terms of a pick, despite Angel City hosting, I think I have to pick OL Reign in this match to win because Angel City's without Tyler Lucy, and that's huge. And OL Reign, meanwhile, is getting back so many players that have been gone with the U.S. team. You think Alana Cook, Sophia Huerta, Rose Lavelle. So I go OL Reign taking the win in this match. What about you?
It's tough. I was going a little back and forth a little bit on this one because, look, I'm not trying to act like this isn't a team sport and it's all down to one player, but you have to make adjustments when certain things happen and certain scenarios come into play. So we saw Angel City make a move for Sydney LaRue in light of losing Kristen Press to an ACL. And I'm curious as to the adjustment that Freya Kum is going to make losing a player like Tyler Lucy, because this is a player that they already sort of made an adjustment with positionally, sort of removing her from that kind of frontline core of players in the attacking and pushing her back a little bit in that fullback position and sort of get an attacking minded player out on the flank to be able to sort of get some different looks for them. So I'm curious as to how they're going to make the adjustment there. I know I remembered when you and I were in LA, we got to see Junendo play much lower as well. And we were just sort of like, wow, they're covering a lot of ground here in that position. So I'm wondering if we might see something similar. And quite frankly, on the Reign side of things as well, because that's a ton of players that have, been out or coming off of a major international tournament. And while they had a week off, it's not just some of the American players. I'm curious if Jordan Wiedemuth's going to be available, the Canadian for this team. This is, again, another player that they made a move for when they also made a similar move for Tobin Heath. Are we going to see increased minutes from Tobin Heath? Laura Harvey has talked about how that's a player they're trying to work back into form. So I think there's a lot of unknowns really kind of on both sides. And listen, I've got this one as a draw. I'm starting off this whole episode with our picks with a draw because I've not swayed one way or the other. And I just like that there's been a bit of time between these two teams. We're talking about two teams that faced each other in the Challenge Cup, had that familiarity, then had that early match in June against each other, which wasn't a lot of time post Challenge Cup. But now we're heading into August. It's end of July. There's been some changes on each side. So I'm really excited to see what these sort of new look kind of teams look against each other after they've had these prior matchups between each other earlier in the year. And I think we're going to see a couple of bangers. I think we could see some LaRue kind of, break through on one side. I think maybe we could see Bethany Balser do something cool as well. But I'm not too sure if either team can sort of finagle a win. Angel City are also at home. And this is a place that the bank is a place that they've made it an incredibly tough place for opposition to play in. And both teams sort of feed off of that energy. but I think it's going to be an exciting game. But I think after dark, NWSL after dark can leave us with with a draw. But hopefully it's a wild one. We'll see though. Let's take a look ahead at this next match that we're going to be keeping an eye on this weekend. We're going to be taking a look at Racing Louisville versus Portland Thorns. Let's look at that one. Let's take a look and see and go through these picks here and see who you got, Lisa.
So Racing Louisville versus Portland Thorns. This is the first matchup between these two sides. But Portland, they've been dominant in their form most recently. They're 7 games undefeated, but their last 2 wins have been truly impressive wins. They're coming off of a 5-0 dominant defeat over Gotham, and then just 3 matches before that, 6-0 over Orlando. So the wins that Portland has received and won in the last few games have been true insane games, scoring many goals, getting shutouts. Portland's in some type of form right now, honestly. Racing Louisville will be hosting this match, though. So this game is at Lynn Family Stadium, but Racing Louisville is coming off a 0-0 draw versus San Diego. I'm going to get right to it. I think Portland's going to win this one. They just also made the trade for Tegan McGrady, so we could see minutes from McGrady in a Thorns jersey, which frankly I would love to see. But between these two sides, even though it's in Louisville at Lynn Family Stadium, I think Portland's just been dominant this year. And because it's the first matchup, we're perhaps starting to see these teams that will play each other in quick succession, right? So these two teams play each other, and then again in 2 or 3 weeks' time, they play each other again. But ultimately, I have Portland winning this one. Sandra, what do you have?
I'm with you, Lisa. I think this is the game where I looked at and I said, you know, at least and I might probably make the same pick here. And I'm looking at Portland for similar reasons that you've already stated. There's just something about this team as they're going to look ahead to the second half. I mean, making the move for Tegan McGrady, you know, I'm curious as to if she's going to get the start in this game, or if she is someone that they are looking for depth on their sort of defensive side of things, because this is a team that has pretty good defensive core, quite frankly. And what we've seen from head coach Ryan Wilkinson is sort of utilizing the 3-back at times and wanting to see their wingbacks get higher. You would imagine that somebody like McGrady could sort of fit that profile pretty accurately. But I'm also looking at other players like Kuika, like Klingenberg, players who have sort of been in the system already. How does that look, right, with McGrady as part of that kind of collective as well? So I would love to see it. I just don't know if we will. Players need time to get acclimated and make that transition into a new team. But I think in terms of the attack, if we do see the return of Sophia Smith at a full 90, I think we could probably see some goals come to fruition just based on her presence on the pitch alone. Louisville has sort of been showing and rearing kind of those defensive, issues I think that we've seen from this team before in the past. And as they are sort of looking ahead into this second half of the season, they're one of these teams that I'm keeping an eye on, because as most clubs are looking to make a run in this second half, this is a team where I think if you're Louisville, you're like looking at the schedule in front of you and you're hitting the mode where you're like, we've got to pick up every single point that we can from here on out. So I expect a battle in this one, but I just think Portland has more in their depth to come out on top of a win. So I'm also going with Portland as well.
So Portland's number 2 in the standings right now, and Racing Louisville is 10. So yeah, in terms of picking up points, Racing Louisville, they've got to at least get 1 out of this match. And Portland wants to continue that 7-game unbeaten streak. It's tough. This is a tough battle, these two.
Yeah, for sure. We're both on Thorns, so we'll see if we come back here if we're correct. I always get nervous when we go the same team because we tend to come back and say, so this happened instead. But we'll see how that shakes out. Let's take a look at North Carolina Courage versus Washington Spirit. Lisa, I love that you mentioned the standings just before we transitioned into this one, because we're looking at that. As we look at the second half of the season, we're also taking a look at maybe this bottom half of the table and teams that are perhaps maybe not necessarily hitting desperation mode, but they know that they have slim amount of time to make an impact. And we've got Washington Spirit currently at number 11 on the standings and the North Carolina Courage at number 12. So we've got almost last and dead last in this one. And North Carolina Courage are hosting this one. We've seen a lot of games this year between these two teams. Who do you got in this one and why?
I love this matchup. It's a rematch of the Challenge Cup final, and it kicks off our weekend. So Friday, 7:30 Eastern, this match is being played. But remember, in that Challenge Cup final, North Carolina won, and now we see North Carolina dead last in the standings. But both bottom of the standings, and with not a lot of points. You look at Washington, 10 points, and North Carolina, 8 points. San Diego and Portland, who are at the top, number 1 and 2, they've got 22 and 21 points. So the disparity between 10 and 21 and 8 and 22 points is huge. When you look at that in terms of points, it's a big battle. It's an uphill climb for both of these sides to get points, get back into this, and make their way to the top 6, because top 6 makes playoff. Right now, OL Reign is sitting in that number 6 spot. They have 17 points. So that's just a look at like the overall standings and kind of how that unfolds. But this is the second meeting in the regular season between these two sides. And as you mentioned, Sandra, North Carolina is hosting. The first time these two teams played, it was a shootout, 3-2. North Carolina ends up winning this match. But there was a penalty kick that Ashley Hatch scored. There was an extra time goal is how North Carolina got the game winner by Kaylee Kurtz. But as I mentioned with Angel City, North Carolina had a bye week for the last 2 weeks. Their last match that was supposed to be played against Angel City was postponed due to COVID. So it's been nearly 3 weeks off for North Carolina. The last game they played was July 10th, and that was a 2-2 tie to Chicago. Meanwhile, Washington, they're also coming off of a tie, 0-0 to Orlando. I am waiting for Washington to get on the winning side of things. They have yet to win a game since the opening game in the regular season. How is that possible? Now, with a lot of internationals coming back at this point of this recording and this live, we don't know the status of Ashley Hatch. She left the CONCACAF W Championship early, dealing with a little bit of back muscle problems. So she headed back to Washington. So that's when Vlatko Andonovski brought in Sam Coffey. So she's hopefully been getting some recovery with her doctors in Washington, dealing with people that she knows very well. Will we see her in this match against North Carolina? Frankly, I don't know. I would be surprised if we do. I think that when you leave an international tournament early due to injury, it's probably a little bit more serious than what you want to let on.
Yeah.
So between these two sides, Washington got the loss against North Carolina. So North Carolina got the best of Washington the first time these two teams played. Is this the moment where Washington gets their second win of the regular season? I think yes. I think that this is the game for Washington to do it. If they, in terms of standings, if they lose to North Carolina, they then become the number 12 team and the bottom of the standings. And I think that's a little bit more daunting for a Washington Spirit team that is the reigning NWSL champions. And just looking at that and a individual battle between those two, they don't want to lose this match. So I think Washington's going to get the win.
You know what? It was tough for me taking a look at this game.
Was hard.
It's I think a little bit harder than just sort of looking at paper and making assumptions of who may or may not be available. I think you bring up a good point about Hatch. I'm with you in that if it's, back injuries are a very delicate thing, and I would imagine that there was enough to pull the player out of a tournament like CONCACAF W Championship, then I think it might be enough to sort of keep an eye on. And I think there's a possibility that we might not see Hatch play or available in this game. And again, we're doing this preview, and this is ahead of availability reports that drop that we usually get to see about maybe 12 hours before a game. So I'm a little curious as to the other players who were involved in that same tournament. I mean, the Spirit had a ton of players with the U.S. women's national team. We're talking about Rodman, Sanchez, Kingsbury didn't see time, so I imagine we'll see her in that. But Emily Sonnet, Kelly O'Hara, a ton of players, right? Basically, what is typically 6 to 7 players in their starting 11. So I'm curious as to how the minutes management is going to go there for these players, or how they feel kind of coming off of several weeks away from their club team. There's also that side of it too, right? We're going to be watching a lot of these players get integrated back into their teams, and how do they look after spending a ton of time away from their club team. It takes a little while sometimes to get the chemistry back and going. So we'll see how it goes there. This was the game where I'm like, maybe I should have saved my draw for this one, because that's the other thing. We've seen these two teams play out to a couple draws against each other. That Challenge Cup that sort of shook out the way that it did, kind of coming down to some very last minute things. So there's a ton of familiarity, I think, that could sort of have the writing on the wall that it would be something like a draw. But I think for parity's sake here, you and Spirit, I'll go North Carolina Courage. Watching this team play
even without Davinia and Caroline.
Yeah, even without them, because watching this team play a couple weeks ago against the Chicago Red Stars that at the time had a pretty massive undefeated streak going on, and they extended that streak ultimately against North Carolina Courage to 9 games. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about this phase of the season. This is one of those teams that I'm talking about. We're seeing teams hit a certain type of, I'll think of a better word for it on the next episode, but we're watching them hit a certain type of desperation mode. They're looking at the second half ahead of them. And again, they're trying to pick up every single point that they can. And this is a team that was without Caroline and Davinia back then. And they went up 2 goals against the Chicago Red Star side. That is a very difficult team to sort of break down. And unfortunately, they ended up dropping all 3 points and walked away with a draw, because we saw Chicago do what they did against them. But that is the type of energy I think that we're going to start to see this North Carolina Courage side play with. We saw them come out and play relentless, bring the energy, press, push the issue. And I think that we're going to keep seeing that from this team, because again, they have to pick up points where they can. I'm also going to say that the fact that they're hosting this one, might come into play a little bit. Sometimes there's that little bit of extra factor where it's like, there's something about being at home, staying in your routine, sleeping in your own bed, and just having to wake up and go to game day, not worry about the travel on your legs. This is a team that's going to be hosting Pride Night. I know that there are players that are very excited about that. They want to put on a good performance, I'm sure for the home fans who are going to be out there in recognition and celebrating that. So I'm going to go with North Carolina Courage in this one. I don't know if we're going to have a shootout just because of the personnel that's going to be missing. But again, I do want it on record that this was a game that I was thinking about a draw, but I'm going to be going North Carolina Courage in this one, because I just went with the draw to start things off in the episode.